Hey guys, back with another video. This time another series review. I've been wanting to do one of these for a long time, but I was struggling to find a series that I'd played all the games for. And in fact, this is going to be a Mario RPG series review, and it's cheating a bit, but it's the only thing I could really think of for this kind of series. I am going to do one on the Final Fantasy series once I get through that, but that's going to be still a little while. So yeah, I decided to do this one on the Mario RPG series. Now this includes Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, the Paper Mario games, and the Mario and Luigi games. And we've got a new one coming out, Super Mario. I think it's called Paper Jam. It's kind of a mix of the Paper Mario games and the Mario and Luigi games for 3DS. But before that releases, I thought I'd do this. It's probably going to be in two parts, with the third part being, of course, my ranking from my least favorite all the way to my favorite. So yeah, let's get things started. So yeah, the very first game was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Came out in 1996 for the Super Nintendo, and it was one of the later releases for the Super Nintendo. In fact, the N64 might have been out, actually, when this came out. Squaresoft developed this game, and Nintendo helped them a bit, I think. Miyamoto kind of, Shigeru Miyamoto, kind of oversaw development in a way. And you know, obviously, I think he probably had an impact in what they did with the characters for this game. But it's kind of interesting because Super Mario RPG, as far as I know, I'm probably wrong on this, but it feels to me like this was the first game where Bowser was not only he wasn't the villain, but he actually joined your party, which was pretty interesting and pretty unique back when this game came out. And you know, I love this game. You know, I've talked about this game multiple times before. It's one of my childhood favorites. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Even though I didn't own it as a kid, I only rented it a few times. And it was, you know, even though it's a pretty basic RPG, there's not a whole lot to it, and it's in fact it's a pretty easy game. I actually struggled with it a bit as a kid. I only first beat it when I played on emulator back in like elementary school or something, but I still have fond memories of it. The battle system was pretty unique for the time, where it was all about those timed button presses, where Mario could punch enemies or jump on enemies or use a hammer, and he'd rush up to the enemies. He'd like hold back his hammer or whatever, and you'd press like the A button right before you struck with the hammer, and you do more damage. And if an enemy was about to attack you, if you pressed the button before they attacked you, they did less damage. Further, like games, this is kind of like the main battle system, and it's kind of stuck with the series into the Paper Mario games and the Mario and Luigi games, and they've done all sorts of different things with this battle system. But this was the beginning. This is where it all came from, and it was pretty unique. The game has very witty and funny writing. I thought the game was quite funny at times. It's really weird too. It doesn't feel like your typical Mario game, especially like with all the different locations you'll be going to, and with a lot of the side characters like Gino and what's his name? The castle Booster's castle, which he kind of reminds me of Wario a bit. But the game was very unique. It didn't quite feel like a Mario game, and I've heard some people complain about that. But honestly, I think that's what makes it so charming. Really, it's very different. The soundtrack is absolutely amazing. Yoko Shinomura did the soundtrack. I think it might have been one of her first soundtracks, and it's absolutely amazing. So many great tracks. One of my favorite is probably the forest theme. I forget the name of it, but it's a very famous song as far as video game music goes. The visuals I think hold up quite well. It's got the kind of pseudo 3D thing going on where it's like kind of isometric. The character models look maybe a bit weird, some of them. The environments can look a bit weird at times too, but I think visually the game actually holds up pretty well, I think. And of course, back when this game came out, it was absolutely stunning to look at. It was one of the best looking games when it came out on the Super Nintendo. I still think overall it's one of the best looking Super Nintendo games. So yeah, I want to keep my thoughts on each of these games brief. I don't want these videos to be too long, but overall, Super Mario RPG is definitely one of my favorites in the series, and it was a great starting point and one of Squaresoft's best games on the Super Nintendo, I think. Now, it wasn't until 4 years later when we got our next Mario RPG, and unfortunately, it wasn't done by Squaresoft. In fact, Super Mario RPG was the only Mario RPG Squaresoft was involved with, and Nintendo Intelligent Systems, Nintendo's second-party developer, worked on Paper Mario, and they've been doing the Paper Mario series ever since. And I love Paper Mario as well. I think this is a fantastic game, and it holds up. I've gone through it a few times. Mario RPG I've actually only gone through once or beaten once. Paper Mario I've beaten I think 3 times now. Another game I rented when I was a kid. I didn't own it when I had an N64, but I did rent it multiple times and eventually did get through it. Then when it came out on Wii Virtual Console, I played through it again, and I love this game. Like with Super Mario RPG, it's also a very simplistic and easy game. It's not going to challenge you, but I think it's very fun. The battle system is like with Super Mario RPG. It's all based around timed hits and things like that. There's a partner system that this game's got going on because basically you only control Mario throughout this game. That's kind of the main difference, as well as the whole paper elements that are in the game. But you have you get all these partner characters that you kind of gather throughout the game, and they're kind of like your secondary party member. So in that way, the game is actually probably even easier than Super Mario RPG. But again, like with Super Mario RPG, this game I thought it was just really charming, really funny. It's just a nice, breezy, fun experience. A lot of memorable locations in this game too. The Shy Guy toy box part of the game is absolutely amazing. That always brings me back good memories. It's got a nice world for you to explore. There's sort of a world map, kind of not. None of these games have like full-fledged world maps. Well, yeah, no, not really. No, none of them really do. Maybe a bit with one of the Mario Luigi games, but yeah, a very, very fun game. The soundtrack is also fantastic. Not quite as good as Super Mario RPGs, but still very good. There's one part in this game I do hate. There's that whole like well, you know, these sections are kind of they're pretty funny, I guess, like the Bowser and Peach sections that kind of take place in between each chapter of the game. There's one section where you have to like bake a cake. As a kid, I hated that section, and I still kind of hate it now. But I don't know. Those sections of the game are kind of funny. I kind of like those Peach and Bowser sections. Yeah, there's some really interesting boss battles here too. I guess with the disappointment with Paper Mario, it would probably be like the paper elements. Like it wasn't until Thousand Year Door where they really got creative with the paper aspect of the game. With Paper Mario, it's just, you know, everything looks like paper, but that's about it. There's a few abilities that are kind of neat, but they don't really do a whole lot with that kind of aesthetic, and especially as far as gameplay goes, they don't really do much with it at all. And that's where I feel the sequel was much better. But Paper Mario, I still really enjoyed this game. That said, if you're looking for a challenge, you're not going to get it here. If you're looking for a very serious game, you're not going to get it here either. But I still think it's definitely worth a playthrough. In 2003, we got Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance, and Alpha Dream worked on these games, the Mario & Luigi series, and they're working on the newest one, Paper Jam, as well. And this series I love. I think it's been very consistent compared to the Paper Mario series. And the first game is still my favorite in the series. And it was fantastic. I loved it to death when I first played it. And it does some interesting things. You control Mario and Luigi, of course, throughout the game, and each of them are on different buttons. So you've got Luigi on the B button, I think, and Mario on the A button. And whether you're on like the field maps or in battle, you have to use these buttons for your timed attacks. So the battle system is very similar to Paper Mario, where you're focusing on time attacks and dodging, but you're doing it with the A and B buttons with Mario and Luigi, and different enemies will attack either Mario and Luigi. So it's very cool in that way. There's really cool abilities throughout. The battle system is very fresh, very engaging, and it's challenging. A big difference with this game and the Paper Mario games is that this game was quite difficult, especially the final boss. The final boss was very hard in this game, and there were no ins in this game, which threw me for a loop when I first played it. The only way to heal your characters is with items, with like mushrooms, which I thought was kind of interesting and definitely made the game more challenging. The environments were very fun to explore. This game was a bit more heavy on puzzle solving than the Paper Mario games as well, because Again, each character was on a different button, and they had like different abilities you could like use. Like I think Mario could like turn into a corkscrew or something. You can do different things with that. I'm struggling to remember a lot of the abilities in the game, but you were using these abilities that you'd earn throughout the game and kind of exploring these environments and solving puzzles that way. No world map or anything like that. I think all these environments were kind of interconnected in a way, which was kind of cool. The soundtrack was fantastic from what I remember. In fact, the Mario RPG series always has good soundtracks in my opinion. Like if there's one thing that's consistently good with this series, it's like the soundtracks. They're all top notch. Visually, I thought this game was very impressive. It still holds up really nice. Great 2D artwork. And overall, I think this is probably one of the best games on the Game Boy Advance. You got it through the Ambassador program if you were a part of that, but I'm pretty sure it's on Virtual Console for the Wii U as well as 3DS. So it's definitely accessible out there. And I don't think, even if you wanted it on Game Boy Advance, I don't think a boxed copy is that expensive, actually. It might be. I could be wrong there. But, yeah, again, like with the Mario and RPG games, very charming, very funny, great writing. I do think the Mario and Luigi games are a little more talky than the Paper Mario games, and that's a bit of a bummer, especially later in the series where I think it just gets out of hand, really. And I think this game is also paced the best out of the Mario and Luigi series. It's very quick and to the point, I think. I don't think it's too talky. And again, it's nice and breezy. You get through it pretty quick. I think the game's like 20 hours, so it doesn't take too long. Very fun, and like I was saying before, challenging. This was the first Mario RPG game that, in my opinion, offered a solid challenge. Nothing too insane, but I definitely appreciated it. So yeah, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, really loved that game. In 2004, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door came out for the GameCube, and this game was fucking fantastic. I absolutely loved this game. I was obsessed with it when it came out, and I was very excited for it too, because I was a huge fan of Paper Mario, and I was following this game's release very closely. I had a GameCube when it came out, and I remember playing this almost non-stop when I brought it home. And I got through it very quickly, but it was just, again, fond memories of this game. And even though it feels like it wasn't that long ago, it kind of was. So in a way, I sort of have nostalgia for it. And this game improved upon the first game in pretty much every way. Absolutely incredible. So it has that a paper aesthetic with the world, but there's so many different abilities in this game, and they're actually very cool. They not only do they look great, they actually kind of mix with the gameplay in interesting ways. I don't really want to spoil the different abilities in this game, but there's some really cool, clever stuff in this game. A lot more puzzle solving in this game, and it was very enjoyable puzzle solving. And you had a main town called Rogueport, which acted as kind of like a hub for all like the different areas. And there was like the exploration in this game was absolutely fantastic. Like exploring this main town, and there's all like these different hidden items you could gather, all these different badges, which I forgot to mention that like the badge system from the original Paper Mario improved in this game as well. It's the same general type of battle system, but again, it's improved in pretty awesome ways. Where like my favorite addition in this game's battle system is the stage. Battles take place on a stage where you have an audience that's kind of cheering you on, and if you do poorly in battle, they'll throw shit at you like spikes and stuff like that, and your characters might get hit sometimes. And conversely, if you're doing well in battle, they might give you some healing items or whatever. Now, granted, this game is, yes, still easy, though I think overall it is a bit more challenging than the first game. And the final boss, like with Superstar Saga, I thought was actually pretty difficult. I've read some things like saying that some people would quit the final boss. That some people haven't actually beaten the final boss and considered it one of the harder final bosses in video games. I don't know about that. I don't remember struggling that much, but I do remember a long-ass unskippable cutscene before the final boss, though, so that could be the reason why. There's also the Pit of 100 Trials. I think that's what it's called in this game. I never did that, but that's there for you, too, if you really want to challenge yourself. But yeah, this game just improved upon the first one in so many ways. It's still charming. It's still got fantastic writing. More talky than the first game, but I think the writing in general is a lot more clever in this game. There's a lot of funny moments in this game for sure. Some great partner characters. I remember liking the plot quite a bit in this game. In fact, I think it probably has my favorite plot out of any of the Paper Mario games. Each of the chapters is very interesting and unique. I remember the train section of the game was very memorable. I thought that was a nice change of pace as far as this game went. But yeah, I don't know what more there is to say. I mean, the soundtrack is absolutely fantastic as well. The visuals, I think, hold up like really well. Yeah, I mean, it's a top-notch game from start to finish. There's nothing I could really complain about. If you love RPGs or love Mario, you absolutely must play this game. It's absolutely outstanding. In 2005, we got the sequel to Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Partners in Time for the DS. And this game gets some shit. It's generally considered to be the weakest of the Mario and Luigi games. And you know what? I don't actually necessarily agree with that. I had actually a pretty good time with this game. Not to say that it's perfect. It does have some flaws. It does bring a lot of new ideas to the table as far as the Mario and Luigi games go. Obviously, it was on the DS, so it had to use that second touchscreen. And what they did was add two characters, where you have Mario, Luigi, and then you have Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. I think two characters are on the top screen, two are on the bottom screen, and they're each on the 4 buttons. So that actually makes the battle system a lot more overwhelming in some ways, but again, it actually makes the game even more challenging, and I think this is probably the most challenging of the Mario and Luigi games. It was a pretty tough game, especially the final boss, but I actually appreciated that, and I think once you get used to the battle system, it's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, where the disappointment comes from is how the game is presented. Like, it's very linear, this game. Superstar Saga had kind of like a world to it, where there was a lot of exploration and it wasn't entirely linear. This game, it's basically level by level, and you basically got, from what I remember, it's like a menu of sorts where you can kind of like warp to the kind of world you want to go to, and that's pretty lame. And overall, the puzzle solving was very heavy in this game. There was a very strong focus on puzzle solving in this one, and I thought the pacing was kind of weak because of that. Eventually, you would get really sick of the puzzles. It was mostly just battling and puzzles, so that was a bit unfortunate. As well, the writing wasn't as sharp in this game. The plot, I think, was pretty boring, honestly, and it was a lot more talky, and a lot of times I remember wanting just like mashing A to skip through dialogue. So, in a lot of ways, it was a disappointment compared to Superstar Saga, but the battle system was still a lot of fun, and some of the puzzles were overall pretty good. The environments were really cool as well. The visuals were great. The soundtrack was absolutely amazing as well. But I can see why some people would hate this game, but I still really enjoyed my time with it. I still think it's worth playing if you enjoy the Mario RPG games. And I think one of the later games was far worse, and some of the Paper Mario games are worse too. So I don't think it's the absolute worst as far as the Mario RPG games go. But coming from Superstar Saga, yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment. In 2007, we got Super Paper Mario for the Wii, and this was a big departure for the series, and it's a polarizing game. There's a lot of interesting ideas in this game, but ultimately, I just don't think it comes together quite well. And in fact, I kind of hate this game, honestly, and this was a huge bummer to me when this came out. Basically, it's all pretty much no longer an RPG. This game is barely an RPG. It's basically a platformer where you're kind of shifting 2D and 3D perspectives. A cool idea, but they don't really do a whole lot with it. The level design overall is really boring. The environments, I felt like very empty, and they were very ugly. Like, the game wasn't very visually appealing, I thought. It didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really make good use of the whole paper aspect. Yeah, a lot of dialogue in this game. Like, if you thought the previous games had tons of dialogue, this game, they went overboard. Some of it's pretty funny. There's a few good lines, but overall, I thought it was pretty dry for the Mario RPG series. And there's just way too much talking for what is essentially a platformer. So that really got on my nerves. The pacing is just all over the place. All the optional content, I remember, was like really boring. The main plot was really dull. And like I was saying, there's barely any RPG elements at all. So yeah, this game, yeah, it was definitely a big disappointment. It's a very boring game. I remember just not having any fun with it. And some of the stuff you had to do in this game There is one early part of the game where I don't really want to spoil it, but it was so tedious. Like there's a lot of tedious shit in this game. It takes a while to get going. There's a lot of awful motion control type things with the game. Yeah, I gotta say I did not care at all for Super Paper Mario. So yeah, I'm on the hate side of it. Now I know a lot of people really love this game, so I mean I guess it depends. So it's maybe worth a shot. You can get this game really cheap now. It's absolutely dirt cheap. So who knows? Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. But I thought it was a departure for the series that didn't quite work. And I had hoped that after this they would, go back to what made the series so strong with the Thousand Year Door in the first game. And well, as we'll see later, that wasn't quite the case. In 2009, we got Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story for the DS, a follow-up to Partners in Time that was really well received. In fact, a lot of people absolutely adore this game, and I definitely think it's a great game. I don't love it as much as most people do. It's certainly not my favorite of the Mario and Luigi games. The main hook with this game is obviously Bowser, and Mario and Luigi get inhaled into his body sometimes, and there's like these really long platformy puzzle solving sections that you do in his body, which, you know what, that's probably maybe why I didn't enjoy this game so much. I didn't really find those sections to be all that fun. Some of them were, and there's some other mini games in this game too that I wasn't a huge fan of, but they did improve upon Partners in Time quite a bit. The battle system, they toned it down. It's not quite as overwhelming. And yeah, the game is easier as a result, but the battle system is still fun. There's plenty of little additions they added to it. The big improvement, though, is the fact that this game actually has an overworld. It's not like a world map per se, but it's a nice, vast world map with interconnected areas. There's lots of exploration in this game, a bunch of hidden side quests and things like that, so that was great. The writing definitely was a huge jump in quality. This is probably the funniest of the Mario and Luigi games. I thought this was a really funny game. There's a lot of humorous writing here. The main plot was very entertaining. I had a blast with that. So yeah, overall, it's just a solid entry in the series. I really don't think it was more. I think a lot of people looked at it favorably because it was a nice improvement over Partners in Time. But I don't quite feel like it surpassed Superstar Saga. And obviously, there's going to be some people that disagree with me on that because this game is really well regarded. And with good reason, it's a fantastic game. But I don't know, I don't quite love it as much as most people. And it's not a game I see myself coming back to in the future. In 2012, we got Paper Mario Sticker Star for the DS. Now, I actually have a review of this game on the channel that you can check out. But yeah, this game, if you thought Super Paper Mario was polarizing, this game was even more polarizing. Actually, it's not even polarizing. This game is hated. People absolutely shit on this game. And you know what? I can see why. I definitely can understand why people would hate this game, especially coming from earlier Paper Mario games and earlier Mario RPGs. I actually enjoyed this game. I thought it was pretty good. That said, I think you have to kind of look at it as a different type of game and not as an RPG. If you go in expecting and wanting an RPG, you are going to be sorely disappointed. What this game basically is an old school adventure game. Not quite point and click, of course, but it kind of like it feels a lot like an old school adventure game where you have to collect stickers, and these stickers are used to solve puzzles. And they are very tricky puzzles. This game was not an easy game. And I think people were disappointed because there were battles in this game where you would collect stickers and coins, but that was it. There was no experience. The only way to gain health was to collect hearts throughout the game, which I actually really enjoyed that aspect, actually looking for all the different hearts. And I liked the puzzles in this game. I thought there were some really clever puzzles in this game. I liked the world that they crafted. I thought the game was very funny without being too talky. I didn't think there was too much dialogue in this game. It looks fantastic. It's actually probably some of the best use of 3D that I've seen on the 3DS. The soundtrack is phenomenal. So you know what? I can't lie. I had a good time going through this game. Obviously, for further thoughts, you can check my review, but I don't know, I guess I kind of enjoyed it as more of an adventure game as opposed to an actual RPG. And I did play it where I would run away from battles, unless there was a certain sticker that I had to get. A complaint with the game is the amount of backtracking. There was a lot of backtracking, especially if you didn't have the right stickers for the right situations. And I can see how that would piss people off. In fact, I can understand why people hate this game. It was obviously a huge departure, and it's not quite an RPG, but for what it was and for what it was trying to do, I thought it was kind of unique. You know, there's nothing quite like this out there. So honestly, if you're looking for something a little different and you know want kind of like an old school adventure type game, you could do far worse than Sticker Star. And this game is dirt cheap as well. So yeah, definitely go in with some caution though, because a lot of people hate this one. I'm in the vocal minority. Who else? Doomwaves. Doomwaves loves this game. Chance, Doomwaves. So yeah, we might be two of the only people that actually like this game. So yeah, it gets a lot of hate. And finally, in 2013, we got Mario & Luigi Dream Team for the 3DS. And again, it's another game I have a review up on the channel. And you know what? I was actually fairly positive in that review, but the more I look back on this game, the more I dislike it. There's a lot of things I don't like about this game. The main hook with it are the dream world, or the dream world, where it's kind of separate from the overworld of the game, where you go into these dreams and you know there's a bunch of puzzles to solve, a lot of platforming, and again, like with Inside Story, I wasn't a huge fan of those sections. I thought they kind of dragged quite a bit, and that's probably one of the biggest complaints with this game. It drags. The beginning of this game has one of the longest, most tedious tutorials I've ever seen. This game treats you like a baby. Like it's absolutely atrocious. It really gets a long time. It takes a long time for this game to get going. Once it does, it becomes quite fun. It's got a great overworld, like with Inside Story. With there's a lot of exploration, a lot of cool side quests. The game overall is pretty charming. It's pretty funny, but again, it's very talky. There's way too much dialogue, and the pacing is just all over the place. There's a lot of terrible mini games in this one, I thought, especially the giant Luigi battles, where you kind of hold the DS like a book and use the stylus. Those I absolutely hated. There's the mini games where you have to blow into the microphone as well. Fuck those things. Like I hate that. Anytime you have to do that in a DS or 3DS game, that drives me insane. Like I hate using blowing into the DS. That stuff's it's so irritating. The soundtrack's amazing. Yoko Shinomura did the soundtrack. It's fantastic. One of the better soundtracks in the series, I think. The game looks great. But I don't know, towards the end and in the beginning, I thought the pacing was off. It's still generally fun, and the battle system is as great as always, but I feel like they didn't really add too much compared to Inside Story. And what they did add, I thought, wasn't very good. So yeah, it's one of those games that when I look back on it, I think I might have been a bit too positive on it because it's definitely not one of my favorites. It's got a lot of problems. The game's too long as well. It's easily the longest in the series. It took me near 30 hours to finish the game. So yeah, I don't know. Not one of the better ones. I wouldn't start with this, but if you're a huge fan, then I'd say it's worth picking up at a reduced price, which I'm pretty sure it's at a low price by now. So yeah, that's it guys, that's my series review, and actually it only took one video, so directly after this I'm going to jump right into the rankings, so it's going to be like a picture kind of slideshow thing like I usually do with probably my favorite song or songs from the series. So yeah, that's it guys. What do you think of the Super Mario RPG series? What are some of your favorite games in the series? What are some of your least favorites in the series? I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.